Hello and good morning to all you out there in the APU sphere. Thank you for joining us for this month's Ask the Security Guy with Shawn Kohrman. As many of you have noticed, I'm filling in for the always lovely Holly Magnuson. My name is Tyler Roth, and I work here in IMT as an Enterprise Applications Administrator. As a reminder, I just wanted to let you know that there's a button in the lower left-hand corner, if you're watching it on YouTube, that says Join the Conversation. We'd love to field your questions and have some feedback from you during the session, so if anything should come up, let us know. This morning, we're actually going to be talking about a security topic that's brought in quite a few questions recently. That's specifically the security around Windows 10. So I'm going to turn to the star of the show, who happens to have quite a few letters after his name, if you've been lucky enough to see his emails. He's the Executive Director of Information Services, our security architect, and just an all-around great guy, Shawn Kohrman. Shawn, good morning to you.
Thank you, Tyler. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for asking.
Excellent.
So yes, talk to us, yeah.
Gotten a lot of questions about Windows 10. Is it secure? What about my privacy? Why should I upgrade from Windows 7? Do I even want to deal with Windows 8 or 8.1 for that matter? And so I thought I'd dive into some highlights this week and talk about some things that folks should be aware of when they think about Windows 10 and should they upgrade and why. One of the first things to talk about with Windows 10 is they have a new security model built into Windows 10, really at the core of the operating system now. And they have a technical term. It's virtualization-based security. Essentially what they're doing is they're locking down parts of the very core of the operating system so that certain things only run if they're trusted by the Microsoft Store or a recognized authority. That helps prevent malware from getting in at the lowest levels. Now, that said, it doesn't stop viruses or malware from getting on. It just mitigates how much damage they can do and what they can access. So you always want to make sure you have antivirus installed, whatever flavor you prefer. Something is always better than nothing. Free, paid, that's up to you. But remember, when we talk about security, we're always talking about defense in depth. So good passwords, have your drive encrypted with BitLocker, or we use a commercial tool here at APU to provide full disk encryption. Never rely on a single solution to provide all of your security. So when we talk about securing Windows 10, there's been a lot of debate among the security circles. Is it secure? Is it not? And the fact of the matter is, when you look at Windows 10 for what it is, by and large, it is the most secure Windows operating system to date, out of the box. Now, what we need to separate here is security and privacy. So by saying it's the most secure Windows product to date does not imply anything about your privacy in using Windows 10. And that's really the crux of the matter that I wanted to bring up today. Was this is less of a conversation about Windows 10 security, which by default out of the box is good. There's not a lot of things you need to worry about to make sure that Windows 10 is secure by default. Now, if you think back to earlier versions of Windows, Windows XP, for instance, when it came out of the box, it was just a gaping hole of security vulnerabilities. Now, they changed that with Service Pack 2, but even that had all kinds of implementation issues, and it was a nightmare. Later versions of Windows got better about it. By default, Windows 7 did a pretty good job, but there were still some pretty significant things that existed out of the box. But Windows 10, by default, is the best secured Windows operating system to date. Now, depending on your opinion of Microsoft, that can be a low bar or not.
Very true.
I leave that up to the user. I know we have a lot of Mac fans out there. And I have fun with them all the time because they tell me they don't need antivirus. And I'm sorry to tell you, Macs are just as prone to viruses as anything else. So regardless of what you may have been told. But really, when we talk about privacy with Windows 10, that's the conversation. Windows 10 leaks information about you and what you do and what you're looking at like a sieve to Microsoft. Now, it is controlled in that it does go to Microsoft only, for the most part. So as long as you trust that and believe in Microsoft as this, benevolent giant in the sky, you'll be fine. But if you're, more concerned about your privacy, there are some things you can do and some things to look at that you have control over right in the operating system. So I wanted to take a minute and show you some of the settings. Microsoft actually did a pretty good job of providing those controls right up front. And if you give me just a moment, I'll share my screen. Share. Okay. So what we're looking at here is the privacy settings inside Windows. And if you click on the start button and start typing privacy, this will be the first thing that comes up. And what you see in here is we've got quite a few options. We can let apps use my advertising ID for experiences across apps, turn on a smart screen, send Microsoft info about how I write, if you're using text recognition on a tablet, for instance. Let websites provide locally relevant content. That means it has to know your location. But then you can also go and say, manage Microsoft advertising and other personalization info. That will take you into the Microsoft account site. And there you can really start digging into some nuts and bolts about what you choose to let Microsoft know about what you're doing. Now, when you're doing Windows 10 setup for the first time, one of the things it's going to ask you, and it's kind of sneaky about the way it does it, is that it wants you to create a Microsoft account. Now, that is, less than ideal. Because what they've done is they hide several steps in the ability to create a local account. Now, creating a local account rather than a Microsoft account when you're doing the Windows 10 setup will turn off a lot of things that are privacy related and privacy problematic by default. But you still should go into the privacy settings and go through each one of these and make sure that you're comfortable with what they mean. Go ahead.
Gotcha. Sorry about that. So from your standpoint, do you have any recommendations about which of those should be or shouldn't be? Would you prefer setting up a local account, or is that more of a per user basis?
I've been playing around with both from a testing standpoint. Windows 10 functions just fine with a local account. Now, what you can't do is install apps from the Microsoft App Store with a local account.
Interesting.
So that's kind of the downside. You can link, if you have an existing Microsoft account, you can link it to a local account. I've done that. So you set up a local account, and then you just provide your Microsoft account for basically use with the App Store.
With that situation, does that actually connect you using do you run into the same issue with it where you actually are using
the same issue with it as if you had set it up that way in the first place, though. Exactly. Yeah. As soon as you do that, you're creating links for all the different things in that privacy screen that I was showing. So you have to be careful and thoughtful about it. Now, the privacy screen, as you look at it, one of the nice things it does is it will show you what apps are using what feature. So for instance, what has access to my camera? I left a lot of these by default just to show you how it comes out of the box. Maps, Skype, Edge, OneNote, Sway, App Connector. So there's a lot of things accessing these peripherals. Microphone. That's also a good one because you want to know what's potentially listening to you. Speech, ink, typing. And Microsoft does have a good write-up about what they collect and why. Now, you can accept their why or not. That's entirely up to you. But I do encourage you, read up so you know what information you're sharing. You'll see here, turning this off also turns off dictation in Cortana and clears what the device knows about you. But look, we'll collect info like contacts, recent calendar events, speech, and handwriting patterns, and typing history. That's all being stored in the cloud. Now, the stated purpose from Microsoft is so they can improve their product. And so that they can, obviously, the more information they collect about you, the more they can refine the user experience for you. If you're okay with that, I'm not. But if you're okay with that, you get an experience with your Windows device that becomes over time more and more tailored to your behavior patterns. But just remember, that means you're giving up a lot of information about yourself, potentially very private, to a company. And you have no visibility into how they're storing it, what they're doing with it, beyond what their stated public intentions are. So there's a host of unknowns when it comes to the privacy of your data. So what I encourage anyone with when you're talking about Windows 10, the security aspect is good. The privacy aspect is a nightmare unless you go in and take the time to control what is being sent forward to Microsoft. Now, that said, there is one significant feature that came with Windows 10 that has a lot of people concerned, and that is Wi-Fi sharing.
Yeah, I've read a lot about this.
Yeah, so Wi-Fi sharing is an interesting thing whereby if you turn it on, your Microsoft will have copies, and now they're encrypted, but they will still have copies of all the wireless network passwords that you connected to. Now, this doesn't work. For instance, it won't work with APU because we use an enterprise-grade security system here, an enterprise-grade wireless configuration. But this does work with all your home routers. Now, what that does is it enables you to securely share Wi-Fi access with Skype contacts, Outlook contacts, and other types of contacts that Windows can see. I don't recommend it. Most of the security community is saying it's okay because Microsoft did it well. And frankly, I was reading another author who stated when you consider the fact of how freely most people give out their Wi-Fi passwords at home anyway, why not?
That's true. I guess the other side of the argument would just be if you actually give your password to somebody and they could write it down and hand it to somebody else, even though you get cut out of the loop on that one. So at least with sharing it, you have that option of at least controlling in some way.
Right, and so there's the idea that there's some control, and the sharing method itself is considered far more secure than what most people do is have a sticky on the fridge.
Isn't that true?
Or on the router itself, which is the other thing I see a lot. So again, there's ways of controlling that. So, and Microsoft provides that in network and sharing. And if you go into the network and sharing center, in here, there are some controls that you can look up to turn off Wi-Fi sharing by default. Now, that's actually something I do recommend because I don't know about you, but for me, I want to be extremely intentional about who I give access to what.
I completely agree with you.
So, but that's really the kind of the 30,000-foot view, and hopefully the answer to a lot of people's questions about Windows 10 security and the privacy around it. Are we seeing any questions so far, Tyler?
We actually did see a question from Linda Crawford, who was speaking specifically about stuff here at APU. Do we have a timeline? When are we going to see Windows 10 used here and on the APU campuses and through APU laptops? And then I kind of have a follow-up question if you have the answer to that.
Windows 10, I believe they're looking at rolling it out this fall, but I would have to double check with Personal Technology on that.
Okay, that's great.
You could also call the support desk and they would be able to give you an answer on that.
All right. And that,
we've completed our testing and validation of it, along with a set of controls that will be enabled and disabled respectively by default in our image.
Gotcha. That was my second question, was are we going to, by default, close some of those things off, and which things we were going to choose?
Yeah, we've already addressed a list of items that will be disabled by default versus enabled. So, does that answer the question?
It looks like it does, yeah. That was the only question that I've seen so far. If anybody else has any more questions, please, just a reminder, in the bottom left-hand side, you should see join the conversation. You'll send you the Google Hangout, and you can use the Q&A section to ask questions. We'd love to hear from you.
Excellent, excellent. So, Tyler, what are your thoughts on Windows 10? Are you using it yet?
You know what? I haven't. I'm still back on the Windows 8 for my machine here. I've seen some of the things. I know there was a couple things that are coming out, like the game DVR, where you can actually record without using something like Gene or another, TechSmith product. I think that's kind of interesting. The Cortana thing kind of interests or is interesting to me, where you can actually ask. You can talk specifically to it, like you would do a "Hey Google," or you could talk to Siri. Do you have any thoughts on disabling that or the microphone setup for that?
Well, just remember, I mean, all of those, everything you're saying to it is being recorded and passed up into the cloud for pattern recognition, voice recognition. So the stated goal for Microsoft is that, as they improve the quality of voice recognition, they have to take samples. And the idea is that they're taking samples of different words that you say and making sure that they're dialed into an actual meaning. The more data they collect, the better they can refine it. There's a company that produces a speech recognition software called Dragon Naturally Speaking. And that's what they do. They collect voice samples so that they really are one of the leaders in voice-to-text recognition. I actually know some people who have written entire books doing voice-to-text using Dragon Naturally Speaking. So it's an interesting technology, but for it to work properly, there's a learning curve. It's a machine learning.
Yeah, absolutely.
But again, you're giving up data for that to work better, or actually for it to work at all. So
gotcha.
It's something that, I don't want to make a blanket statement if you should or shouldn't do this. You need to be aware of it and make a decision for yourself as to what you're comfortable with or not. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, it looks like there were a couple people that were having some sound issues, so I apologize for that.
You're sounding a little like Darth Vader.
Oh, I do?
Yeah.
Well, that's definitely by design then. If it's not, then I apologize. So could you set the record straight? It looks like Linda has another follow-up question about Windows 7 and being refreshed. Are computers that are being refreshed for this summer going to be on Windows 7, or are they going to go to Windows 10?
I believe they're going to Windows 10, but I'm not entirely sure on that.
Okay.
Again, reach out to the support desk, and they should be able to answer that for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Shawn, one of the other things that I read while I was going through some of the new cool things with Windows 10 was the automatic, the ability to schedule a restart after a Windows update. Have you seen anything about that?
So that's actually an old part of Windows 7 that's been around for quite a while. You can set a time of day for your computer to restart and update, or you can let it do it automatically whenever they come in. What it does, though, is it makes it more visible than it used to be. So you can be more, more intentional about when do you want to install your updates. Now, I've heard it, a lot of people say, well, I don't want to run updates because then I have to reboot. Part of the way we maintain security is through those Windows updates. So as new vulnerabilities pop up, or more accurately, are discovered, Microsoft releases patches. If you're not patching, you're basically opening the door wider and wider to your computer.
Yeah, gotcha.
So the sooner you install patches, the better, is a good rule of thumb.
Even if it's inconvenient at the time, because it's you get to the end of the day and it's, I don't want to do that because it's going to take me 10, 15 minutes, but you're saying it's worth it.
It's funny. In security, we see the battle. Security and convenience are always at odds. The more secure you are, the less convenient it is. And that's why a lot of people really do very insecure things, because it's more convenient.
Yeah, absolutely.
At the end of the day, everyone's responsible at some level for their own security. So your actions, your behavior patterns, the things you choose to do and choose not to do, all impact your relative personal security. So it's always a good question when you look at, oh, it's so easy to do X, Y, or Z. Well, what are you giving up for that ease of use? And how much more difficult is it another way that provides you more security? So it's again, no one can answer those questions for everybody. And every situation is different, but I think people need to really bear those questions in mind, and just have that honest assessment always at the forefront of your mind. Is this really convenient thing compromising my relative security? And just think through that. One of the things I encourage everybody in IMT is, think about how you would attack this. If you were a bad guy, how would you break in?
That's a good way to look at it.
For all of us, with different areas of expertise, how would you break it? And then once you figure out how you would break it, let's fix it so that it can't be broken that way.
Gotcha. Hey, we actually got another question here from somebody who is a regular on the show, Holly. I know we're talking specifically about security, but she asked, what's your particular favorite thing about Windows 10, if you can answer that?
My favorite thing about Windows 10, I don't know, it just seems a lot more stable than Windows 8. And it seems like a much smoother user experience than Windows 7. Windows 7 always felt a little clunky to me. Windows 10 just seems to have a much smoother user experience. And obviously, I like the fact that it's secured by default.
Yeah, that's a definite advantage.
I know for me, when I sat down and did my initial round of testing with it, I was actually pleasantly surprised with the lack of tweaking that it needed.
Have you seen a steady ramp of security over time, or has it been almost a lessening?
No, over time, Apple and Microsoft both are getting better out of the box. But they are, they're front and center with dealing with that battle between convenience and security. And what they're both working very hard on, or trying to accomplish, is how to make security convenient. Which, I'll tell you, I'm glad I'm not trying to answer that question in their shoes.
Yeah, it kind of is the $1 million question. If you could figure that out, it would make everything so much simpler and better and secure.
Yeah, it very is a money-making question for them.
Absolutely. Well, I'm looking here, and it doesn't seem like I've seen any more questions. Holly also said, "May the 4th be with you." Of course, it's Star Wars Day. That's a good one.
And with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Shawn, do you have any other thoughts about Windows 10 security?
The security of any product is up to you. These days, a lot of products are secure out of the box, but what really matters is how we use them.
Yeah.
So you can take the most secure product in the world, and if you're using it in an insecure manner or disabling security controls out of convenience, you're hurting yourself more than anything. You know, like I said, Apple and Microsoft both have done a very good job of making security more convenient than it used to be. Just make use of the tools. Something's better than nothing.
Absolutely.
So just, again, some security controls are always better than none.
Specifically in Windows 10, they have the Windows Edge, the new browser. Do you have any tips or thoughts on security for that? Because it's kind of the new Windows
Explorer name. Don't bother. Chrome, Opera, Safari, Firefox, I don't care. Anything but Internet Explorer.
So would you give the same recommendation for Edge?
I don't trust it. Still don't trust it.
Gotcha. Do you have a preferred? Do you go to Google Chrome, Firefox, or Opera, or one of those?
Personally, I'm a Chrome user, but I also use Firefox when I need it.
Just to have the back and forth, so without clearing your cache, you can.
Different purposes.
Okay, certainly.
Yeah, there's a few other tools I use, but those are two of my primary. It is Chrome and Firefox.
Gotcha. With LastPass on both of them, I'm sure.
Of course. I wouldn't recommend it if I didn't already use it.
One of the things that you pointed out was the location privacy settings. Do you have any recommendations on whether it's okay to share your location for re-engineering, people looking for your location to try to figure out if you are who you say you are? Do you turn it off? Do you turn it off for APU?
Location security has a lot of convenience factors. It can tailor your news feed to local news. It can tell you all about your weather, how long it's going to take to get to work. So if you turn it on, there are a lot of nice features that come with that. But you're also giving out information about where you are and where your computer is while you're doing it. So it's a trade-off. Are you comfortable with what you're giving up in return for what you're getting? Because nothing's free.
Yeah, absolutely.
For instance, with a lot of Google products, they say it's free. Well, it's not, because they're tracking where you click, what you do. They're tracking a lot of information about you, and you're giving up that information in return for their services.
Do you have a threshold that you set for yourself that says above this level of asking for information, I say no to it, or do you use particular products?
There's a lot of bits of information that I just don't give up.
Yeah. So what is your social security number, by the way? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, good luck with that. But no, it's you got to remember too, I experiment with a lot of things just so I understand what the compromises are. But again, I'm fully aware of what I'm giving up versus what I'm not. So, and it's not that hard to find out. For instance, Google provides great tools into viewing what data they collected on you.
What kind of tools are those?
The ability for you to purge it.
Yeah. Well, what kind of tools do you recommend for Google that you were saying?
The built-in tools. There's an account security tool that comes, or security checkup tool that comes with Google. Just if you go into google.com and go security checkup, there's a tool built right in for your account that will let you see into all the data they collect on you, what they have stored, and give you the option to either download it or purge it.
That's a great tip. I actually wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. As time goes on, especially as more and more of our data is in the cloud providers are becoming more forthcoming in providing these tools. So you have the option to control what you're sharing and what's stored.
Certainly. Well, I think we have just a couple minutes left. I had one other question. There was actually sorry, one of the things that's coming up with Windows 10 is the ability to cast videos to Miracast or DLNA enabled screens. Is there any security around that you have to worry about?
I haven't actually played around with that much yet, so I don't really have an opinion on it just though. My understanding is it's through a pin-based control system. But the underlying security controls, authentication, encryption, I don't know at this time. That's certainly something I can research and revisit, though.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I think there's one more question here that I can point out because we're right here at 11:30. Sue Wilson asked, will there be an option for users of APU with Windows 8 to upgrade to Windows 10 prior to a refresh? Maybe if you just recently got one.
I don't know, but Personal Technology can sure help you with that answer. Again, just reach out to the support desk and they'll be able to help you.
Fantastic. Well, Shawn, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We appreciate it. We'll have another one of these, and hopefully Holly will be here to run this whole thing next time. So,
all right,
Shawn.
Thanks, Tyler.
Have a wonderful day. See you.
All right. See you.